Hi friends, welcome to another episode of Making Disciples. I'm so pleased that you have joined us today. Now, this episode is definitely different to usual. This last week I was interviewed by Martha Jones of the Nimbus Collective. And it was such a fun interview. I thought I would flip it around and put it out on this podcast as well. Because it's basically a conversation about creativity and coming out of COVID, what will church look like, how are we going to do church. So it's quite a fun conversation. She's brilliant. And the Nimbus Collective are actually doing a fundraiser at the moment, a crowdfunder, to create a hub of creativity. So what I'd love you to do is check out crowdfunder.co.uk/Nimbus Collective. And Nimbus is Nimbus Collective. Go and see what they are doing. You'll hear her in the episode talk about it just at the very end. But the work that Martha does, trying to stimulate creativity for mission and church, is just wonderful. We think she's brill, so we'd love you to check her out. And what she does in the episode is she interviews me about some of the things that we're doing, and we have a conversation about what church could look like from September. So please do stick around and give that a listen. And the other thing to say, so this is episode 56, and we're going to take a month off. It's August. The sun is out. Love you to go back and listen to some older podcast episodes, catch up with ones that you have missed. We'll be back in September. We've got some podcast episodes planned for September that are really exciting, but we're going to give you a pause, have a bit of a break. We've worked throughout COVID and the lockdown, and now we're going to have a pause and a break, so do catch up with some episodes. Now here we go, an interview by Martha and me on creativity, the church and mission.
Well, good morning and welcome to Outside the Box at Nimbus Collective. If you've never met me before, my name is Martha and I'm joined by the marvellous Cris Rogers. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been looking forward to this.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Now,
But when you're doing these live feeds, do you get really nervous the doorbell's going to ring?
Do you know what? Normally I have my husband here and he's under strict instructions to make stuff quiet, but we live in a maisonette and the people above us, the floor's quite in Friends with the sweeping broom and they hit the broom, it can be quite loud at times, but luckily nothing bad's ever happened. But Mitch isn't here, so I mean anything could happen today. But yeah.
You come across John Mark Comer?
Yes.
I was interviewing John Mark for a podcast that I do, and my son was upstairs and he was playing Fortnite and he'd obviously just got killed and he had an absolute meltdown, screaming, yelling, banging. And John Mark's on screen, he's giving this beautiful answer and all I can hear is this noise upstairs. And at the end of the interview, I had to go, I am so sorry. That noise that you could probably hear was my son being killed on Fortnite.
So all the things. Do you know what I love so much about these chats, and live things and things, now that kids are at home while parents are working from home and stuff? I saw it was on the news, BBC News or something. Did you see the video of the woman and her daughter arranging this bookshelf? And the interviewer on BBC was brilliant. He just embraced it. He was like, I think it looks better on the other shelf. It was just great.
I can guarantee somebody may walk in at any point into my study.
Well, I look forward to that. We'll have a little chat with them.
Anyway.
Now, people don't know you, don't know where you are, what you do. Tell us a little bit about where you are in the country and what you get up to.
Yeah, East London. Becky and I, with my two kids, moved to East London in 2010. We helped to plant a church in a Bengali neighbourhood. So, Assalamu alaikum. We do a lot of work with our Bengali neighbourhood, which is so much fun. I got to go just now and sign a birthday card for one of our lovely volunteers, who's a Bengali Muslim lady that helps volunteer at some of our stuff. So beautiful relationships with our Muslim community. And we live in community. So in our household right now, including those who live in the basement, there's 10 of us in our house. So lockdown was a little bit interesting because
Wow.
in our bit of the house, there's 7 of us. And apart from me and my son, it's all girls. So Isaac and I were leaving the house during lockdown to get isolation. Because we were going bonkers over Taylor Swift. There was just only so much Taylor Swift we could listen to. So we live in community, and we are desperately just trying to work out how do you do local East London, normal church, non-pretentious, authentic community with people who are pretty messed up and have some amazing stories. Like, they have got some crazy shenanigans in their past, and seeing them come to faith is so much fun. That's what we do. And I also lead something called Making Disciples, which is like a network and a ministry around discipleship, trying to help churches engage with disciple making. So I spend a lot of my time helping churches work out where are they getting stuck with their discipleship.
Amazing. Now, what I love, Cris, about All Hallows and your church building is that it is so a centre of community. You've just opened a cafe, which is amazing. Although I'm guessing in lockdown it's taken different routes.
Yeah, so we opened this coffee shop in January. It took us 9 years to build this thing. It's called a haba, which in the original Hebrew is where you get ahava, which is love. In the Arabic, the V and the B can be interchanged, so it's haba. Both means love. So we opened that in January as a community hub, and the aim is to employ people who are maybe out of work, help them get back into work. We want a place where the phrase for us is where first contacts become friendships.
Yeah, I love that.
We want to make mates with our neighborhood. And one of our problems is, as a church in a Muslim neighborhood, it's hard to get people through the church doors.
Yeah.
So we have a community center that we run, that we were gifted about 6 years ago. We were given this community building, and we run all of our work to the Bengali community from that center. But we wanted a space that was in the church as well, because we're actually on the highway. So we wanted to spin our building around and face the highway. So we have built this beautiful creative coffee shop, and it is so good. During lockdown, it became a zero contact shop, selling bread, milk, eggs, flour.
Amazing.
It was so good having a place where you could genuinely love the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And be present, even when people had to isolate. So they'd come and pick up their little package off the doorstep with whatever they'd ordered in, and they could get their coffee or their chai tea or something. It was just great. Really, really, really cool.
I love that. And I mean, I guess those building relationships, Jesus never asked people to come to him, did he? He always went to people, or was traveling or going through different places, which probably had completely different cultures to the village next to them. And so what really excites me with you guys is that you're not like, this is us, come and join us. It's like a mixture of just lots of different cultures, lots of different people, lots of different backgrounds, all creating this one beautiful mess.
Yeah.
You know, for want of in fact, no, that's a great phrase, a beautiful mess, because it's just a mixture of so much excitement and loads of different. It's just brilliant.
So 2 weeks ago, we had this crane collapse 500 yards from our house. So there's a building site, and the big builder's crane collapsed, and it fell on 5 houses. A lady passed away, and I was literally 60 seconds away from the foundation where it fell, and I didn't even notice it fallen at first because it was so big. When something so big goes missing, you almost don't notice it's gone. Like, hang on, something strange. And within minutes, the question wasn't, what should the church do something? The question was, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And we were able to create this coffee cart with tea and coffee, open up the church as a safe place for people to go and sit, put the coffee cart right outside where the police take was. We were serving coffee, chatting with people, pastoring them. And I think for us, there's always this question of, this is the situation. What is our response? Not should there be a response, but what is it? What's it going to be? And I think we're always asking ourselves, what's the opportunity here to say something to this neighborhood about how much we love it? And there was a really cool photograph went around East London. There was me, there was Raf, and a member of our church serving tea and coffee. Nobody knew we were from the church. We weren't wearing church t-shirts. This picture was taken, and it just said, typical East London spirit. Check out these guys.
Amazing.
And after about 40 comments, this Amy, a friend of ours, goes, "That's my vicar." And suddenly there's all this kind of chat about, oh, it's amazing when you suddenly find out it's the church that's on the front line. And it was so sort of screen grabbing it, going, that is exactly what you want people to be saying about the local church. It's brilliant.
Yeah, totally. It reminds me of when I was at drama school, there was this phrase that was used, which was don't act, react. And the idea that when you're acting, don't put on a facade, don't try and be that character, just react to what's happening. And I think you could apply that to the church. So many churches try and act, try and put a persona on, but actually we just need to be reacting to what's around us and changing and adapting. And that is really exciting when you see that happening. I love it. It's one thing. So I visited your church a few months back when we were planning for a spring harvest that never happened in person. And in your church building, there is the most incredible lanterns, and they've stuck with me. And they, in fact, you tell the story about what these lanterns are, because I love it.
I feel like it's not my story to tell. That's the problem. So
Okay.
I have two members of my team who are just amazing. My youth worker, Alex, and my community worker, she's not worker, she just heads up all of our community work, Sarah. And we had this dream of every festival celebrating Jesus well. Like, if we don't celebrate Jesus, nobody else will. So Christmas, Easter, Pentecost, Advent, like, what are we going to do to celebrate Jesus? And we had this idea of a prophetic prayer walk. We would, as a church, build giant lanterns, light lanterns, and we would go around the local schools going, do you want to join us in building light lanterns? Our community ESOL Cafe, our youth work, children's work, they were all building lanterns. And what we did was we said, turn up to the community centre at this particular time on this particular evening. And we had probably about 300 individuals with these giant lanterns they'd built. So one year we made one of Aslan, and Aslan move. Another year we had a space rocket, and we had a marching band at the front. When I say marching band, bunch of kids from church with drums.
Yeah.
And they were at the front, and they would drum and lead us on a procession around the neighborhood. And I was on the kazoo playing Spirit Breakout, marching band, and we had all these Christians and Muslims and non-faith like with us in this prophetic prayer walk. And we walk around the streets in our neighborhood that we've seen stuff, drug dealing, domestic violence. And we were like, let's walk the neighborhood and go around these streets. And then we'll end at the church and throw a party. And at that party, we're going to tell everybody the reason why we've done it. We have done this because it's Advent. And Advent is the belief that light is coming in darkness. And light has a name, and his name is Jesus. So that's what we're celebrating tonight as Christians, is that Jesus is coming in darkness. And as we prayer walk this neighborhood, we're proclaiming Jesus over our neighborhood. So we've got these giant lanterns, and we kept a whole bunch of them, which is the ones that you'll have seen.
Yeah, sure.
It really is this idea of, can we come up with a creative way of celebrating a festival in a way that nobody would expect and catch us? So we're walking the streets, and you've got kids hanging out of bedroom windows and cheering as we go by. Look, we're in a little East London poor neighbourhood. We're not. These things don't happen around here. Creative things don't happen around here. They happen in other areas where middle-class people feel empowered to do this stuff. It doesn't happen unless we create it in East London. And it's really good fun. It really is wicked.
So what do you think then is the role of creativity linking with like spreading the gospel? And because so often we just use words, and in my opinion, words don't land often, and people like to read stuff through art, through music, through listening. What do you think is the role for the creatives or creativity and the church in spreading the gospel?
It's a very good question. I think for me, the creativity is the vehicle that we can use. The message needs some goo, needs some liquid. It needs something to transport it.
Yeah. Most
of us are stuck. We're stuck with one way of communicating, that is with words. It's a powerful way. it's an easy way because we've all got a gob. So it is an easy way, but I don't think it's the most powerful way. And creativity becomes the substance of which carries the gospel in new and fresh, profound ways. So sticks and tape and paper and lights can become the creative goo of which a new message can be transported. And that new message, therefore, has new language to it. So it catches you off guard because many of us, we use old language. We've not learned a new language yet, a new Christian prophetic language. Yet when we talk about Advent and light and dark and Christ coming in the darkness, the visual language of that is so powerful. You see the light parade, you hear the light parade, you see the people in the light parade, and it captivates you in a way that, let's go to an Advent service. This isn't going to do it.
No.
And so when people say to us, do you have an Advent service? Well, kind of. You wouldn't like it. You wouldn't like it. It's noisy and there's a lot of snotty kids.
Sounds like my idea of heaven.
There's something, and we get the police involved as well. So we've had the police close roads for us.
Right.
Police will come to the party afterwards as well. And in fact, one of the police officers that we know really well wrote a beautiful little thing on Instagram for us last time we did it, that said something like, it's only the church that comes up with this kind of stuff. Yeah.
I think for me, it's disturbing the calm. Like creativity disturbs the calm, the what we know, the linear, and in disrupting stuff, it's like when you disrupt dust or something, you can find stuff underneath it that you never knew existed, and that for me is why it's good.
I think one of the things I realise is for most churches, we want to work out what's the message, and therefore they spend all their time, what's the message we want to communicate, that fail in step 2, which is what is the vehicle for the message. Because we presume the vehicle is liturgy and robes and organs and pews and that kind of stuff. Or worship bands and guitars. Like the charismatic church is now a cliche of itself because it's been going for long enough, of which I'm charismatic. So I kind of point the finger at myself. It's easy to pick up a song and sing a song. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the vehicle we want to use to convey the message? And that's where we then get stuck. And that's where the creative prophetic can actually come in. So what does it look like for us to celebrate Easter? What does new life look like? How do we want to communicate that? What's the vehicle for that for us? So we've done some really fun stuff when you start thinking about what is the vehicle, just little things. Christmas, through the community centre, working with non-Christian kids, we did a nativity performance in the neighbourhood that accumulated with a crib in the heart of our neighbourhood, with children reenacting the nativity actually in the neighbourhood, and then just ending with this whole message that many of you think Jesus came in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago. Jesus comes on the Lincoln estate tonight. You're just changing the place that you do something, or the way you do it can actually be a vehicle change, and that then captivates people because it's just different. It's a fresh way of doing it.
Yeah, and relating it to people's knowledge of what life is now, because, you know, like you say, Jesus coming in Bethlehem, it's quite a hard concept for a lot of people to get their head around unless they've been in church for years and years, and it's kind of ingrained in them. But actually likening it to what it is now. I love the story. I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago in one of these chats of the woman at the well, and how Jesus meets the woman at the well. He was already there and she turns up. She's like, what are you doing here? And then she can't help but like verbal vomit what she's heard and how she's encountered Jesus. And there's so many times where I've felt like that woman in my current day, and I felt like there's been an encounter or something's a light's been shone on me, and I can't help but share that. But reading it from thousands of years ago, or me sharing my story, that they're the same, but they are received differently, which I don't know, that for me is great, because then that gives us permission to be the verbal vomiters, for want of a better phrase.
A few years ago, we were doing the Sermon on the Mount, and at the end of the series, I was meant to do a sermon that brought everything together. And in the notes, it just says, Cris will somehow bring it all together. And during the series, I'd been translating the Sermon on the Mount into what I call Cris language, not NIV. And my own version of the Sermon on the Mount translated. And so how am I going to... So I knew what the message was. I needed a new vehicle. And I ended up deciding that rather than preaching it, I would just be Jesus. And I sat in the congregation and started preaching as if I was Jesus with the Sermon on the Mount. And I delivered the entire Sermon on the Mount in 25 minutes.
Right.
In that, I was stood on the piano at one point, and I'm walking through the pews the other. And you could just see changing the vehicle can really help us change how the message is heard and received. So if you say to people from my church, tell me about the Sermon on the Mount, many of them will say, oh, there's this one thing that they did at our church. And it was so good because we weren't expecting it. Yeah. And he was on the organ at one point. They really remember those things. And we've done a lot of that kind of stuff, trying to make the sermon a more of a prophetic experience.
Yeah, and it's immersive, isn't it, as well? Yeah. Because people can then all their senses are awake then, because they're like, well, where's he going to be now? You know, you're experiencing it firsthand. That's why I love theatre as a vehicle as well. I've done similar things in different places, and it's that excitement. One thing that I remember going to an immersive theatre experience in Paddington. It wasn't a Christian thing. It was just a theatre production thing. 4 flights of a car park warehouse thing, and as the audience, you had to wear masks, so you knew who the actors were because they weren't wearing masks. And then you just went through all of these different floors. The actors were running around. You just followed the actor wherever they were going. It was like there was a Wild West. One of the floors was full of sand. Another floor was like had these Winnebago caravans on, and they've completely transformed the area. And you could follow whichever story you wanted to, because you could chase whichever actor you wanted to see where they went next. But imagine if we did that with like all the different encounters of Jesus, transformed a building, and people could just chase after. Do you know what I mean? And just experience it for themselves.
It's interesting you said that, because I can talk about it, because this is my Sarah and Alex. They are absolutely fantastic. Have you been to Secret Cinema?
Yes.
So it's basically what you're talking about, this immersive theatre experience that ends with you watching a movie or something. Mm-hmm. We wanted to do something with Christmas. So we did an immersive telling of the Christmas story where you would find the characters around our neighbourhood.
Right.
Because we don't have a massive building, and we don't have but you did find Mary and Joseph at the bus stop.
Dream.
And parents were taking their kids around the neighbourhood looking for and hunting down. So the wise men, a big star, and they're walking around the neighbourhood, and you're running around trying to find the next clue in the mystery of who this baby was. And you had to go and find the different characters. Okay. And so we tried to take that kind of idea and use it across our estate. And it was really, really good fun. And there was a particular household that they had to go and knock on the door. And Cheryl, a member of our church, she's been a Christian 2 years, and she opens,
no room at the inn.
She opens the door, and she's the innkeeper. And it was just fab having that telling of the Christmas story where you get to travel around an area that you know. And the whole message was, yet again for us, Jesus in the neighborhood, the incarnation, the God that's not in Bethlehem is in Bow.
Yeah.
And actually for us using that kind of vehicle, that dramatic storytelling stuff, it works so well with kids. They just get hooked in, like they're in it.
And adults love it. They try and say, oh no, that's for the children, but you get as hooked in as any other person. It's great.
Yeah.
See, what I love about that, and this kind of segues me on something we were chatting about before we went live, is what you've just explained. I'm sure there was music, but it's the power of the story, the power of immersion in the story, your senses being awakened. And yet we are so stuck and clung on to a structural service or we sing, like you were saying about the guitars and all of this, we sing, or so we're going into a time now where we can't be stuck to our structure. We can't be stuck to what we know or what we're default used to. So what do you think? Well, we're going to have to be innovators, aren't we?
We are. And I mean, for us, it's really hard. So I've already had say to somebody said to me, if we don't open our church and sing, Cris, we're colluding with Satan. Ooh, okay. So we are going to have to unshackle ourselves from sung worship. And that my concern is that we've actually turned worship of God into the worship of worship. Some of us actually really love singing Waymaker, and that's become our God.
Yeah.
The feeling we get when we sing a song has almost become something that we are idolizing rather than the one that we are worshipping. So we're going to have to take ourselves at lock. So we're thinking, like, how do you do church differently? So over August, we're doing things like picnic church.
Yeah.
We are going to be meeting on the grass that's in the middle of our community. We've got some white, the paint that they use on tennis courts.
Oh, like chalk paint type stuff.
Yeah, we're spraying circles, and then we're going to have a picnic blanket. And the idea is come and have picnic church, 6 people, and the service is going to be part on their device with a Bluetooth speaker, so they can press play, they can listen to that part of the service and then discuss it.
Oh, that's cool.
That's going to be really good fun. We've got some great speakers as well. We've been able to pull in people that we wouldn't maybe be able to get at All Hallows, but we've said, look, we're doing this thing. Fancy being like, would you give us 12 minutes of this particular topic?
Right.
So the idea is they'll listen to something that's about 10 minutes long and then be able to talk about it. So we're doing that. We're calling that Picnic Church.
Right.
The other thing we're doing is we've just got the money to buy a silent disco headsets. We are going to do silent disco church. So you came to the Pursuit years ago.
I did.
We took a risk on something that there was so much learning in that for me around gathering people together for worship. And one of the things that went really well was silent disco headsets, where music is put into the headset, and learning to worship God with dance. So one of the things we want to experiment with this season is going to be, we can't sing, but we can dance. And actually dancing is just as biblical as singing.
David.
Not more so. So we're gonna try and do church on a Sunday night with these silent disco headsets.
Right.
So socially distanced around our building. And people go, oh, but that's consumer because it's everybody's individual. Well, actually, the way it works is you can people hear things and they connect through what they're hearing with each other. So it doesn't actually have to be isolating at all. So we're going to try that. So that'll be interesting to see how that one goes. The other thing that we are really exploring at the moment, and I'd love anybody that's got any ideas on this. So churches all over the country, if not the world, meet every Sunday and don't sing. They're typically churches who are deaf or blind or mute. They worship differently. They worship with their fingers. They worship with sign. So I want us to learn Amazing Grace and be able to sign Amazing Grace. So we're worshiping through song with our bodies, not with our voices. Right. So I want to explore these kind of ways of worshiping. There are others who worship these means all the time. Take it as a season to learn what the rest of the church is doing.
Yeah.
We're kind of exploring at the moment what are the different ways that you can use your body to worship. So anybody who's got any other ideas around that kind of stuff, we would love to hear it. So I'm trying to find somebody at the moment that will print me the Lord's Prayer 100 times in Braille.
Cool.
Because at one of our services, I want to be able to give everybody a copy of the Lord's Prayer in Braille. And so we're going to pray the Lord's Prayer with Braille.
Great.
And that's something that I'm thinking like, this isn't, people seeing, oh, we can't sing, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't have communion. Oh gosh, stop focusing on the can'ts, focusing on the cans. So what can we do? Well, there's a lot we can do that we've never even thought about. So how can we do something with drawing in worship? Where can we do something in with poetry in worship? What would happen if we all got together on Sunday night and we wrote a psalm, and then people got up and they led worship by leading us in their psalm that they've written? Like, these are all creative ways of worshiping. But people are, I mean, all I hear at the moment, and maybe it's just where I am, but people are, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that. Oh, it's miserable, life is over. And I'm going, there's so many opportunities for different things. We might end up with a church that looks so different, we don't want to go back.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I'm with you. And actually, if you have, this is a good point for me to say, we've got a few comments coming in, so I'll read them in a moment. But if you do have any ideas, pop them on here now and I'll read them out, and I'll read this in a second. One thing that struck me, Chris, when you were talking about the parade is how you had your youth on the drums at the front. Like, you think about like even stomp or like tribal stuff, or samba bands, that type of thing. Like, that's biblical as well, like banging the drums, and there, we can make chaos, we can make the sound, we can worship in different ways. And that's again, there's something, vibrations as well. I think when you feel something in your body, that like a feeling from something else, when you really hear a drum bang, or I do tap dancing, and there's something when you tap, you get the sound, but it's also the vibrations in your body that make you feel alive, and that's really exciting.
You have just really got me excited.
Yeah, I love it.
So in September, I'm going to do this teaching series on Let's Kill Off Singing. And it's going to be all about how, what is worship? What is true biblical worship? What does the Lord require of justice, mercy, compassion? And we really want to explore doing church very differently. And I love this idea. We've got all these drums from the marching band. We've got all these other things you can turn into drums. We could have an evening of stomp worship.
Yes, I'm there. I'm gonna come over to Bow and join you. There's also, I think, with that, if you're doing, a series or something, you could link it with Bible story. David dancing. You've got all the drums and the psalms, all that stuff, and then you've got, the woman who dipped her hair in the oil. You could have a total immersive smelling thing with like all herbs and things like that, and link that with, she lavished Jesus in worship by just tipping loads of perfume on him. That's an act of worship. Smell, and so it excites me how much there is to do. Right, I'm gonna quickly read out some of these comments. Thank you so much if you are joining us for this chat. I hope you're having or getting as inspired as we're feeling right now. It's really exciting to think about what could be happening. If you have any questions, this is a really good time for you to jot them down. Now, morning, Lara. Hello, Lara says, morning, Chris and Martha. I've enjoyed watching your Making Disciples Spring Harvest videos on YouTube and refreshed at your approach of mission and loving the cafe initiative, she says. Cool. Actually, that's an interesting one. So Spring Harvest, your Making Disciples stuff that you're talking about, is there a way that people can get hold of that content and bits and bobs if they want to grab it?
wearemakingdisciples.com is the website to head to. The podcast, though, I have been so excited. A friend of mine said, why don't you, rather than do lots of blog writing, nobody reads blogs anymore, why don't you start a podcast? I cannot believe how many thousands of people are downloading the audio podcast.
Yeah.
We tried putting it out as a video on YouTube, and what's interesting, the videos get a number of 100 views, but the audio gets 2.5, 3, 4, 5,000 downloads, depending on what the topic is in that particular week. But I've been really excited by it. I thought podcasting was dead.
No, there's a revival. It's like an on-the-go thing. I listen to podcasts while I run. It's an on-the-go thing. Yeah, that's great. And can we get hold of those on your website? You go to the website. The podcast is linked from the website. But if you've got an Apple iPhone or a Google, it's Making Disciples with Cris Rogers. Right. And it's very easy to find. And the last month has been really cool. We've put some really fun. I interviewed a
pastor from Hong Kong. I've interviewed a Christian convert from Iran who was in prison for 4 years for his faith.
Wow.
Just been some really like, oh, you are amazing kind of people on there.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I'm going to check it out. Jan says, morning, Jan. She says, where are you in the East End, Cris? I come from Poplar. I'll come and see you next time I'm down. You must be near Bow if you saw the crane. Oh, she knew about it. There we go.
Yeah, Gangster's Paradise. If she's from Poplar, we're just north, so in Bow. We're Devons Road DLR is our closest DLR station. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Sarah's loving the Lantern Parade. Jan has said, I have a picture of a huge mosaic outside a wall, let me read that again. I have a picture of a huge mosaic on an outside wall with artwork from different cultures. That's quite a cool way. You could get people to all add something to the mosaic or a part of it. Have you seen, there's an artist called Doodle Man, and he just doodles loads of stuff. Again, he's not Christian, but he just it's like a massive graffiti wall. Getting people to add stuff to that would be great. Okay, Mark says, morning, Mark. He says, contact Torch Trust for the blind. They might be able to help with the Braille printing. Oh, that's a good point.
It did. Actually, they a few years ago, I did something with Braille and I actually contacted them. My only concern is when there's a Christian charity and you're a charity and I don't want to do you over by asking you to do 100 of something that actually you're too busy. Yeah. I mean, I could try them. You just don't want to be a burden on anybody else, do you?
Well, if anyone knows any Braille things, please do. Jan says it's hard to print Braille because you can't feel the raised dots, but somebody out there will have special equipment. There you go. Well, if anybody does have the special equipment, get in touch. Yeah. And morning, Douglas. Morning, Kathy. Morning, Jill. Lots of good mornings. Fabulous. Now, Cris, I have a final couple of questions for you, and then we're going to wrap it up. My two questions that I'm asking everyone on these series is, firstly, what's one thing that you've learned from this season of lockdown that you want to keep with you for your rhythm in your new normal or whatever you want to pick up? And what's one thing that you want to get rid of from your old rhythm, pre-lockdown, pre all of this, that you want to say no to and you want to get rid of in your new norm?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've picked up is, as a church, we have a bunch of things that we call spiritual disciplines.
Yeah.
We promote something called the 3-2-1. Every day, do your 3-2-1. It's read your Bible for 3 minutes, 2 minutes pray, and 1 minute listen to God. And the idea is that's the first step on a life of prayer and discipline with God. And we ended up printing these awesome little booklets. That's day, that's night. And in it, it was to help our congregation while we weren't together, keep doing this stuff. So 3, feed, 2, speak to God, 1 is encounter. And this has just been really good. Now, the bit I want to keep is the bit at night. We've never done night prayer as a church. It's not our discipline. But we thought it'd be nice because we called this is what we call our retreat to advance.
Nice.
Before Jesus did anything, he always retreated into the wilderness to then advance. So we put in a night prayer in here, and this is from Compline. And I've never been a word reader. I'm dyslexic. I don't work that way. But we found this prayer from Compline, which is just so beautiful. And I took whatever evening meetings I have with the congregation, we always end now using this prayer from Compline. And I think it's something that from lockdown, I now have this by my computer. I have it on my phone, and wherever at the end of the day, I either do it with whoever's online or I do it before I go to bed. And that's just been a real win. I want to keep doing that. It's been a really good way of ending the day. The other thing I want to keep, it's got nothing spiritual. Oh my gosh, I have loved spending more time with my kids.
Yeah.
My kids have not been at school, they've been at home. We've done far more Lego than we've ever done. I think we've invested a heck of a lot of money into Lego.
Right.
Cycling with my son on a Sunday afternoon has been an utter joy, like a 3-hour bike ride. because we've not had church in the same way. And I really want to keep that, going out for evening walks with my kids, the chocolate bar from the co-op kind of thing. So for me, that's what I want to keep. So on the flip side, what do you want to lose? I am somebody who feels so guilty when people say to me, Cris, can I see you? And I say, I don't think I can. I'm busy. And I often will find extra time to give to people, and I end up squishing out to the point where I just give too much of myself away. And I am now really making sure that I am not having more than, so in a 7-day week, I'm not having more than 3 evening meetings. I'm being really choosy about what I give away evening wise. And already people are saying, can we have a meeting about this? And can I have a meeting about that? And I'm going, the first evening that I'm free is in September, because I've got a holiday in August. And I think I want to keep that. I don't want to give away my evenings like I were, because my evenings are also my creative time. Making time. I love making and painting and creating. So I need to keep that time.
Yeah, I love that. And there's discipline in both, isn't there, of keeping those things and losing those things as well. Both require discipline. They're brilliant. Thank you. Well, thank you again for joining us, and do check out our crowdfunder. For crowdfunder campaign month, there's only 1 week left of our crowdfunder, so if you haven't looked it up yet, go and have a look at www.crowdfunder.co.uk/Nimbus Collective to hear all about our creative resource hub that we are going to be launching very, very soon. And I hope to see you again for another one of these chats. Have a lovely, lovely day. Thanks, Cris, for joining me.
Pleasure.
Take care.
Bye.